Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our main event for UFC Vegas 111 or UFC Fight Night 264. In this matchup, we have Gabriel Bonfin taking on Randy Brown. Bonfin, or more the Brazilian phenom, has definitely been making waves with explosive finishes and a relentless grappling game that had definitely made him a prospect to watch in the welterweight division, and currently ranked 14th in the world, going now on a 3-fight win streak since his first and only loss to Nicolas Dalby back in November 2023, where Bonfim defeated Ange Lusa via decision, submitted Chaos Williams via Darce this February, and then most recently this July defeated Wonder Boy via decision, which, granted, I thought Wonder Boy won that fight, and I picked Brown in that. Or sorry, I picked Bonfim in that. Now he'll be taking on Randy Brown, a very seasoned technician, calm under pressure, rangy, and one of the most intelligent fighters when he sets his rhythm. And Brown himself has been riding some momentum. Besides the one loss to Brian Battle, which you could argue Brown won, he's been on a tear, knocking out recent names like Nicolas Dalby, being the first person to knock out Nicolas Dalby, or on the record anyway, and knocked out Muslim Salikov, who has been on a tear recently. This is going to be a great fight of youth and experience, and more or less control versus chaos, as Bonfim brings that raw aggression that makes him dangerous in the first round or so. But Brown brings the kind of patience that does turn aggression into opportunity. So let's break down how these styles collide. All right. Starting with some kind of context, Bonfim comes into this fight as one of the more promising prospects in the welterweight division out of Brazil, still just 27 years old. And at a time, he was undefeated, all of his fights via finish, and during his first stint, he was submitting names like Trevin Giles in the first round, and built a reputation off first-round dominance with quick submissions, heavy pressure, and a very explosive start. He is a specialist who does not waste his time, and as soon as the fight begins, Bonfim is going to be in your face, throwing straight shots, looking to clinch, and diving for that neck. And that kind of fast starting energy makes him very lethal, but also can make him very predictable. As you saw with Nicolas Dalby, who was able to survive the storm in the first round to first half of the second round, and then come back and win emphatically via the second round TKO. Meanwhile, you got Randy Brown, who is at this point a long-standing veteran of the welterweight division, and he's faced just about every fighter you can imagine. Knockout artists like JDM, grapplers like Bilal Muhammad, brawlers like Brian Barberina, and slick technicians, like actually JDM too. And at his best, Brown is composed and fluid and very opportunistic. And Brown is the kind of fighter who doesn't just win via flashy knockouts like you saw with the right hand with Salikov, or the the triangle to Wale Alves, but he wins via rhythm. Clear stakes in here. Bonfim ranked 14th in the world. Brown always been that guy who's been like top 20 to top 25, and usually most fighters have to beat Randy Brown to prove they belong in the top 15. For Bonfim, more or less, he does the Randy Brown test, but the roles are kind of reversed in here. But I honestly think Brown has deserved this. Now, I know what people say. Why is this the main event of a fight night? I agree, but, it's an Apex card. They don't exactly put their best effort in these. But for an Apex card, I actually quite like this because there are some bangers. Also, by the end of this video, I'll give my other predictions on the rest of the card. All right, as I spend most of the time working on my videos for 173. That's next Sunday. So looking at Bonfim, his style is based off pressure and quick reads. As Bonfim does not waste much time finding openings, and he's going to look to immediate commitment. As when that bell rings, Bonfim is usually very aggressive, and besides straight punches, that southpaw cross down the pipe often leads to his hooks to the body. And striking may not be refined, but is effective because of intent and throws to close distance. Now, Bonfim striking has greatly improved, and especially you saw the Chaos Williams fights, where the scene Bonfim striking was just on another level to what he has shown previously. Good straight jabs, good leg kicks, opening up every now and again, but just keeping smart strikes and keeping Williams at the end of his punches. But the real danger of Bonfin isn't what the striking, obviously. It's what's coming after. He uses his hands to disguise level changes very well. And once Bonfin grabs a hold of you, his front headlock series and guillotine setups are some of the best in this division, as he's had some of the nastiest like guillotines, mounted guillotines, or Darce chokes in terms of submission artists in there. Only ones who I can think are better than him would be Sean Brady, and that's, in my opinion, the best pure jiu-jitsu grappler in the welterweight division, or Gilbert Burns, as he's finished multiple opponents, usually under like 2 minutes because of that seamless transition to striking and grappling, at least early on in the UFC career. Now, Bonfin's submission game is definitely just pure aggression. He doesn't play safe positions. He jumps on those guillotines, attacks with scrambles, usually chases for finishes, even if it means giving up top position. And that can be a double-edged sword. And against less experienced fighters, that aggression overwhelms them. But against veterans like Brown and Dalby, who stay calm under threats, that can backfire on Bonfin. And one area of concern for Bonfin is pace. He used to fight fast, and when those finishes don't come early, you will see the fatigue start building in. Defensive reactions will fade. The jab slows. He's done better, I will say, Bonfin, in managing his cardio. You saw when he went long with Andalusa and Wonderboy, he didn't tire as badly as in comparison to Dalby. So it has seemed that Bonfin has learned his lesson of being electric in the first 5 minutes. But, there are some times where fighters who are always been aggressive might go back to the well on that, especially in big fights like this. You never know. Now, looking at Randy Brown, he's quite the opposite, in my opinion. He's a rhythm fighter, long, patient, and sharp once he finds his range. At 6'3", Brown has one of the longest reaches in the division, and he knows how to use it. His jab is his anchor, quick, loose, and quite disruptive. And sometimes he'll throw it from a classic boxing stance. Sometimes he'll throw it from the hip. And he doesn't always have to throw it to hurt. He just throws it to find his range and control distance. And every time you move, he's going to touch you. He's going to touch, breaking the rhythm, measuring. And he fights tall, but very fluid. Good job at tucking the chin in, wide stance, and always ready to pivot off the cage. And one of Brown's biggest strengths, I would say, is the ability to reset. Even when pressured, he rarely ever panics. It's like, say, when he had Dalby hurt and literally sent Dalby's nose to the one side of his face. And then you saw Dalby hurt Brown. Brown didn't panic once Dalby was on top. He stayed composed. He kept the kind of a close guard and did a good job of making sure Dalby never was able to frame off and go with ground and pound. As Brown, you also see Brown's very good at framing, circling, and returning to the center. And against a fast starter like Bonfin, that composure, I think, is going to play a big factor. On the inside, Brown does got a sneaky good clinch game. He's got good elbows and knees for short range and can catch opponents who are trying to force grappling exchanges. And defensively, he has developed solid takedown awareness, not just through his sprawls, but through position, as he's fought some really good grapplers like Wally Alves, Mickey Gall. Now, I know those are kind of bottom of the barrel, but they are still good grapplers. And as you also see, Brown doesn't overcommit to his shots. He rides through transition and works his way back to range pretty well. And when Brown does fight in a rhythm, the fight kind of slows to his pace. That long range jab, those low kicks, step-in knees, and those measured counter strikes. And oftentimes he forces you to think instead of swing. And then when you start thinking, you're already losing. And I think the key with Brown is always the first round. If he can survive a storm, like the one Bonfin might put on him, then I think he can maybe win the fight late. Now, how these two meet in the middle? Well, for Bonfin, the goal is simple. He wants to make this fight ugly. Wants to close distance, crowd Brown, and force scrambles where his submission game can take over. I do think Bonfin is going to blitz Brown forward behind that left hand of his and look for the clinch or takedown. But that approach could play into Brown's strengths. As Brown is excellent at punishing level changes and overextension. He's got uppercuts, knees, and front kicks, all functional as natural counters to that forward pressure. If Brown can establish those weapons early, he might be able to make Bonfin kind of hesitant and second guess himself. The first few minutes, I think, are going to be very tense, as Bonfin will likely test Brown's reaction in with hard punches to the body, some level changes. I think Brown would need to be very composed and fight long, and make sure not to get caught up in the storm in the first 2 minutes to half of round three. Great. And so I think I expect Bonfin to have moments and maybe even threaten with submissions early. But I think the experience of Randy Brown might be the key factor in this one, and his ability to keep a consistent pace and rhythm as the fight goes long. So for how I kind of see this fight playing out, I think round one, Bonfin comes out very fast and aggressive, pushes the pace, lands really good clean shots, and possibly even takes Brown down, making it so Brown has to stay defensive and simply survive. But I think as halfway towards round two, I think Brown's going to start landing clean. The kicks might start scoring, and I think Bonfin's explosiveness might start to fade. And I think round three and onward, I think this could become Brown's fight to win, as he'll start flowing, feint, controlling space, and punishing Bonfin for attempting to close the distance. So my official prediction, I'm going to go with Randy Brown, and I think he can win via late TKO, or quite possibly a decision, winning round 3 to 4. I think experience, the composure, and the range control are the keys here, as Bonfin is very dangerous, but Brown has learned how to weather that kind of chaos that Bonfin usually brings to a fight. Now, Bonfin, like I said, has definitely improved over the course of his career. You've seen it, and you've seen his composure be more prominent. But I think Brown has just been doing this a little longer. I think the experience and the ability to stay even better composed and make fighters like Bonfin pay for mistakes are what's going to win in this fight. I think this is a veteran in Brown showing a rising star, that there's more to fighting than some of the aggression and hot starts. And if this is a fight that I think definitely shows the subtle wins at the elite level, as not every battle is going to be about pressure. Sometimes it's just who's going to stay calm after the storm. Kind of similar in a vein, if you will, to, how do I want to say this? I'm kind of losing the analogy now that I think about it. But I think maybe of Islam versus Charles, right? Where Charles is that aggressive storm early. Now, Charles has definitely improved and has even proven they can go 5 rounds, no problem whatsoever. But you notice how in early parts of Charles' career, if fighters can survive that early storm of just relentless attacks from his knockout power to his submissions, then they can win. And I think we might see something similar to that. So once again, my official prediction, I'm going to go Randy Brown. I'm going to pick him via decision to late TKO. That is a possibility. Now, as I said, I would also say who I think are going to win the other fights on this card, as I don't plan on doing videos for those, just because, by the time I release the videos, I'm not much time to watch them. So my other predictions, I'm going to pick Zach Reese, Daniel Marcos, Denise Gomes, Josh Hoddick, Jacqueline Cavalcanti, Ricky Simone, Hyder Emil, Marco Tulio, and what I think is going to be the fight of the night with Christian Leroy Duncan, Chris Paldea to get a big upset, Muslim Salikov to get the upset, and then Joseph Morales to finish match now and possibly retire him again. But that being said, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. If you enjoyed the breakdown, hit like and subscribe, and let me know who you're backing in the comments section below. But with that being said, stay sharp, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. See y'all next time.